Welcome to the Mulligan Stew podcast. I'm Terry David Mulligan. This week, our guest for the hour is singer, songwriter, musician, producer, and founding member of the Barenaked Ladies, Mr. Steven Page. Our conversation was recorded live at the National Music Centre in Calgary, Alberta. Last weekend, the Barenaked Ladies celebrated their induction into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. Steven Page joined the band at the National Music Centre for the induction ceremony. He was in Calgary to mentor emerging songwriters as part of the National Music Centre's Master in Residence program. On Saturday evening, he joined me for an oral history on his work on stage at the National Music Centre with an audience of 300 people. We spoke about his career with the Barenaked Ladies, from their big break on Speaker's Corner to touring and winning over his musical heroes, Billy Bragg, Brian Wilson, and Steven Duffy. We also delve into his feelings on If I Had $1 Million, what it was like to split from the band that he built and grew up performing with, his struggles with anxiety and depression, and his post-Barenaked Lady career as a solo artist and member of the Trans-Canada Highwaymen. You'll also hear Steven Page perform Call and Answer, A New Shore, and his hit, Brian Wilson. Live from Studio Bell, home of the National Music Centre, this is my conversation with Canadian musical icon Steven Page.
Good evening. Hi, Terry.
By the way, this is as clean as we'll ever be, okay? Right here.
These 30 seconds.
Tell me about your week when you arrived here, what you thought you were stepping into and what the reality was.
I didn't know what I was stepping into. I've done songwriting seminars or workshops and stuff in the past where people come with their songs and they play them for each other and everybody critiques them and they go off and rewrite them in order to try to please the other people in the songwriting seminar and usually lose all sense of self and come out with some songs that sound like they could have been recorded by some generic 90s soft rock act. But that's not what happened here. What happened here was it was an opportunity for 6 emerging Canadian musicians to come here and kind of do whatever they want. This facility is incredible. Not only do they have 3 better than world-class recording studios with legendary historic equipment, but they also have the biggest collection of instruments I've ever seen in my life, and they have time and space to both get to know each other and get to experiment. So some people came with their own songs that they wanted to try to get feedback on. Others came with just the idea of maybe writing new stuff or collaborating. They all got to write music and spend some time with me talking about everything from writing to planning next steps in their career to figuring out who they are as artists and how to do business things like hiring management or booking agents or all those kinds of things that sometimes you don't know where to ask how to do that stuff. Then they all got the chance to demo new songs, and we ended today with a chance to where we all got to hear the stuff that everybody had recorded. And the greatest thing about this is everybody is fantastic. Everybody's very different from each other, stylistically and personality-wise, but they're all really super strong writers and performers, and I'm excited to be here with them.
Is it possible to describe what songwriting is? Because everybody has a different version of what songwriting is. What is it to you?
Well, to me, we have a very limited amount of time and space to distill a story and convey a set of feelings and maybe relate to other people in the audience, but also to surprise people sometimes too. But everybody has a different view of how to write a song. Some people's songs are the auditory equivalent of landscape paintings, and other people's are much more cinematic. And mine I always see myself as either being like short stories or the soundtrack to a scene in a film or something.
Try it as an exercise. Open a bottle of wine.
Well, as I said to everybody here, it's like all those songs that you make up, the songs that I annoy my kids with, that seem like they're nothing, they're all something. I used to believe that you'd have an idea for a song, and if you slept on it overnight and then woke up the next morning and still remembered it, then it was worth remembering. I think I'd heard Paul McCartney say that, and then I realized 40 years later that that's Paul McCartney. He can say that. The rest of us should be thanking the muse for our gift. And if the song, it might be like, Sleep Country Canada, why buy a mat? Think about, maybe there's other things you can do with that. Just change a note here and there, and maybe it's like, maybe all of a sudden we can twist it into a dark diatribe about our disappointment in our home country. I can't buy a mattress anywhere else. I don't know.
You have grown up in front of them.
I know.
From those really bad shorts.
I know.
Are they, by the way, are the shorts in the Hall of Fame?
No, that would have been a great idea, but I'm sure they're in the Goodwill.
Okay. What did you learn? When you work with young songwriters like that, who want to know, songwriters should be a sponge. They should suck it all up. They learn from you, but what did you learn from them in the process?
A lot.
What were you reminded of?
Well, I guess the biggest thing I learned was how much more, intuitive I feel like they are. Like, I feel like when I started writing songs, I had no idea. I mean, a lot of people have been writing songs for years and years and years. They're not just out of the songwriting womb. But, I think that it was probably 3 or 4 records in. It wasn't until I started working with Steven Duffy, my hero and my friend from England, who was 10 years older than me, still is, and
strangely,
yeah, he taught me a lot more about like what you want a song to achieve and how to lay it out, how to organize your thoughts, how to build things over the course of a song. Until then, I don't think I had any clue. I was just kind of writing willy-nilly. And these writers all seem a lot more in tune with how they want to get to the end of the song than I ever was.
You've been described by someone who knows you well. I won't mention any names, Craig Northey, who said, you love to take a song and a lyric and a melody and then build layers on top. Like he defined it as making it strange.
Yeah. Other people might call it wrecking it.
Yes. That's right.
Craig is probably my closest confidant and musical friend and non-musical friend. And I talk to him more than I talk to my actual brother, probably.
Easy.
Daily.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. Talk to him a lot about everything, but largely about music. Lots of, hey, did you know that so-and-so played this kind of guitar on this song? Because I know that nobody else is going to care except for him.
There's the geeky side.
Yeah. But he also co-produces my music with me. And basically his job is to go, do you really need all those different layers and counter melodies on top of everything? Maybe you should get rid of some of those guitar tracks and some of those backup vocals and strip it down a little bit. And I have to then defend myself and defend my ideas, which is good for me because it makes me go, okay, no, I'm making those choices for a reason because this is how I hear the music. And he's also pretty good at going, okay, you've convinced me. I wouldn't do that.
Okay. Here's the thing. I'm sorry, I'm going to lose the camera here for a second. You and I are driving along. We're listening to this music. We're not thinking about that shit. We're not thinking about the lyrics and the melody and the chord structure and whatever. We're thinking about how that song strikes us in the heart.
Absolutely. And I was actually saying this to the artists here this week. We were talking early in the studio about the amazing equipment they have here and the the great people they have to maintain it and run it, record the stuff for you, and how I've learned a ton from some of the great producers and engineers that I've worked with over the years. But then I also think about the fact that if you were to take apart a lot of your favorite records, let's say you were to listen to all the individual parts on Bohemian Rhapsody or on a Beatles track or something, and there's noise and there's distortion and there's wow and flutter on the tape, and there's notes that are slightly out of tune, and it's part of what makes that magical. I obsess over those things, but I realize that I don't need to obsess over making them perfect. Like, for example, I'm working on a new record, and there'll be a section where I've lived with a vocal for a long time, and I'm used to it. I like how it sounds. I like the feel of it. But I know there's one line where it's just bad. I screwed it up, and I did it 8 months ago. And so I go, well, I'm just going to plug a microphone in and re-sing that line. And so I do that, and it sounds totally different. And I'd sent the mix off to Craig Northey, and he said, the EQ is different on that one line there. And I said, yeah, that was because I sang it a lot later in a different microphone with a different preamp and a different compressor in a different room and whatever. And it doesn't matter. Because nobody's going to be driving in their car going, the EQ is different on that one line. And if they do, they're going to love that. They're going to go, here, listen to this part. Listen to how different the EQ is on that line.
How different, from the perspective, how important is it, the audience and their attention to you and the song? How addictive is that to you?
I've honestly learned to totally rid myself of that. I mean, I'm not as enlightened as that may sound, but I take, for example, the best example is the song I was joking about before, If I Had $1 Million. It was never the song we were most proud of, right? When someone would ask us, what song, in an interview or something, what song are you most proud of? And we would all talk about kind of the most obscure, deep album track that we had toiled over, and we were really proud of the achievement of it. And I remember in one interview like that, Jim Cregan said, if I had $1 million. And the rest of us just, we started crying, laughing so hard, thinking, that's so stupid. That's so dumb. And then, he explained it to us later, and he said, no, this is the song that, people's grandmothers know. Or it's the song, it's a soundtrack to their first year in university, or a family camping trip, or, a wedding, or whatever else. And it has nothing to do with us anymore. And isn't that the thing to be most proud of? And I've realized that ever since. It's to be able to have a song that is in the collective unconscious in a way. It has nothing to do with you anymore. It's just in the ether, especially here in Canada. God, that doesn't happen very often. To have written a campfire song that has no or very little connection to its originator. It just belongs to the audience. I want that all the time. That's what I want.
By the way, this is why this room was created and this building was created, so we could hear those stories. For example, I can't tell you how many singer-songwriters I've spoken about Gordon Lightfoot, Joni Mitchell, Neil, Robbie Robertson, those writers and how they were driven. What was driving you?
I don't know. I think probably the first song I wrote, I sat at the piano and wrote a kind of a Lionel Richie-style ballad.
I'm sorry?
Lionel Richie-style ballad. I'd like one order of Lionel Richie-style ballad, please. And 6 hot wings. No, I don't need a Caesar salad. It's okay, thanks. It's free? Okay. But then otherwise, it was a terrible song that I care not to remember, although I do. And then after that, I started writing with my friend, my best friend from childhood, Jeff Poundset, and kind of drawing on the stuff I was talking about earlier, those songs that are just in you, that you just sing not thinking, oh, that's a real song. We thought, let's draw on those and build on it. and we were really into punk rock and what was in the 80s, I guess, called college rock at the time.
Which was what?
So bands like
Ramones?
No, well, for me, it was the Jam was my kind of punk rock band.
Oh, please, come on, no.
I like the Who. I like the Kinks.
Okay,
so it's just an extension of that.
Okay.
But then it was also stuff like everything from the Kingston Trio and Peter, Paul, and Mary, and then things like REM, the Jazz Butcher in the '80s, a lot of English stuff like that. There was still song based. Billy Bragg later, the Smiths. So there were song based things that had senses of humor, and the Violent Femmes were another big one. So that's kind of where we
Stay
started.
out of this. Violent Femmes.
Oh, they're the best. That first album is still like top 10 albums.
Oh,
of all time.
come on.
Best.
But I'm with you with Billy Bragg. Okay, that's all.
Yep, and that was like a dream come true. This is not a blowing my own horn thing. It's just me like telling a story because it's an awesome story. We went to England in 1992, right when Gordon came out, and we played a concert in London. It was on Canada Day, and it was Mary Margaret O'Hara, who is an amazing genius, one of the greatest songwriters and singers of all time, but also very
from the planet Zorb.
Yeah, a little unpredictable. And this show didn't go so great for her, but we were on this show. It was at the what was then called the Hammersmith Odeon.
Yes.
And I look in the audience, and I see like right about there, like fourth or fifth row, I can see Billy Bragg, who I've seen in concert like 10 times, and I love, and I know all of his stuff, and he's right there. And I'm thinking, how do I entertain him? Because we're nerds in our shorts and stuff, and that's not cool. And a few months later, we got an invitation to open for Billy Bragg at his annual New Year's shows at the Hackney Empire. So he apparently liked what we did. And he walked into the dressing room the first night, and we always called him Sitcom Bill, because he comes in, and he tells a joke, and then you laugh, and he leaves. It's like Larry from Three's Company. But he came. But this time he came in and he just said, "What a good boy, best song of '92," and then walked out. And I was like, "Oh my God!" And then we got to tour with them all over North America a few years after that. So sometimes you get to actually meet with and work with your heroes.
And you are touring the UK?
Yeah, went back there for the first time in 10 years last fall. Did a handful of dates.
And this year?
Went so well. We're going to go back and do about 2.5 weeks of shows.
How special is that for you?
Amazing.
Yep.
Like, actually, speaking of What a Good Boy, again, the first time we played there's a venue in Glasgow called King Tut's Wawa Hut, and we'd never been anywhere before. And it's an awesome, like, kind of legendary venue. And we went, and when we sang What a Good Boy, the whole audience is packed, and they all sang the song with thick Scottish accents. And it was like the first moment we all had thinking, these people, they're not our friends. Like, it's not like it's our cousins. They all have like accents and stuff, and they know the words. And I went back to that same club, and we did 2 nights this last year, and it was sold out. And I went back there solo, and I have this very, sentimental memory of this. And it, just as I had prayed, it happened all over again. It was super emotional for me, and also for Craig and Kevin, who were playing with me, but also for the audience. I could feel that. I mean, it was nostalgia, but it was also like, it was so in the present that it wasn't just nostalgia. It was a pretty amazing feeling. So I hope I get even a sliver of that this time.
Very nice. So you're heading back to UK. You're going to the States. You have a new album.
Coming this summer.
This summer. It's part 2 of part 1.
Part 1 of Heal Thyself is called Instinct. And
yes.
This one, part 2, which I've been promising for some time, is called Discipline.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, I have no discipline, which is why it's taken 2 years to put out.
You said to me on a hard-hitting exclusive interview that you had written enough songs for 2 albums, but you were doing part 1, part 2. Are these the same songs or different songs?
About half of them are the same, but then when you live with it too long, then you go, I don't know if I like that anymore. And I have new stuff that I like better. I mean, if I had put this out a year ago, it would have just been the other half, and I could have moved on and put out this new stuff now, but I take too long. And also the record business sucks. So it's like I had to basically get out of my deal and have a little more control over what I was doing before I put this out.
Okay. You and I, speaking of suckage, you and I were talking about...
Yeah, speaking of suckage, Steven's going to play a song for you.
No, before that, we were talking about radio today. That he loves the Beatles. We love the Beatles. And
Which sounds like saying he doesn't really like music.
No, hold on a second. No. What we're saying is the entire Beatles collection seems to have been reduced to half a dozen tracks.
Right.
That's all they play.
But they're pretty good tracks.
They're pretty good tracks. But there's all of those other tracks out there. Thank God for CKUA. Thank you. Here's the thing. Radio today, that audience that's listening to that radio now, they don't know the music history that you do. Your mentor was Paul McCartney. If I asked you which of the four Beatles you would love to be, it would be Paul McCartney.
Alive. Yeah. I like being alive now. No, Paul. Like I mean, as I love all of them. I mean, like I go through periods of obsession. I was so embarrassed by that movie Boyhood when he's made a mixtape of like the Beatles albums that would have happened if they'd stuck together by taking all the best of their solo records. Because I've done that exact same thing with my kids a lot. But I'm like, Ringo and Goodnight Vienna are the two best Beatles albums that never work. I am that nerd.
On.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Here's the deal. I know what the last song is going to be. Steven's going to do 3 songs tonight. I have no idea what the first song is going to be.
I don't know either. I'm trying to think of how this ties in. This is as good as the Beatles. How about that? No, I know. I'll tell you a little bit about co-writing. We were talking about co-writing.
Sure.
And this is an example. So when I was a teenager, I went to England in 1985 with the Scarborough Schools Youth Choir on a tour of England. And
is it soprano?
I was a tenor. Thank you. I had a little fluff here, so I could be a tenor. And I used to do this where before I went on a trip of some sort, I would go and buy a cassette to listen to on my Walkman for the entire trip, like my album for the trip. And I spent almost a whole day at Music World at Scarborough Town Center trying to figure out which album to buy. And I bought this album, The Ups and Downs, by Steven Tintin Duffy, who had this one hit called Kiss Me that was, was a dance floor kind of synth pop thing. But I knew he had something else. It was something in the songwriting, even though the production was very glossy and 80s and synthy. And I bought this record, and I was obsessed with it. And I told him afterwards in a fan letter that I wrote, how much this record meant to me.
To him?
Well, I sent him a fan letter, but he wrote back. And he wrote, like I would send him another letter, and he'd write back again. I found out later some of them were actually written by his mom. They have similar handwriting. But at the same time, we actually did become friends. And he can't even, figure out why. It was just one of those, there's no chance we're going to date or anything. And it was pre-internet, so it's handwritten letters. But as I started to make music, and I was writing poetry too, I would send that to him, and he loved it. And when we were playing in New York one time on the Gordon tour, he ended up being in New York at the same time, came to the show. We went out for dinner, and he said, well, you want to write some songs together? Which I always likened to the girl of your dreams saying, so you want to have sex? And at which point you go, oh, okay. And so he came up to Toronto, and we were supposed to stay for 2 weeks, and he stayed for 6, and we wrote most of the Barenaked Ladies' second and third records. We've been super close friends ever since, and I hope that child's okay. They can stay. It's not bothering me.
Child is okay. And so this leads to a tune.
Yes. So this is a song we wrote, and sometimes when you...
He said...
Sometimes when you co-write, it's like you sit in the same room and you bash out a song until it's done. But in this case, he sent me a tape, or I think he just sang at me, maybe 3 lines, which became the first 3 lines of the chorus, and I wrote a whole song around it, which is still co-writing, because the song wouldn't have happened without those lines. And he always says, I can't believe you wrote a whole song out of this one thing I sang at you. But I'm super grateful for it, and I think that's, it harkens back to what I was saying about before, about listening to everything that's on offer to you. To every little scrap can mean something else. Getting to the point where I can be myself again. It's getting to the point where we have almost made amends. And I think it's the getting to the point that is the hardest part. And if you call, I will answer. And if you fall, I'll pick you up. And if you call this disaster, I'll point you home. I'll point you home. You think I only think about you when we're both in the same room. That I'm only here to witness the remains of lovers you. And I think we're here to play a game of who loves more than who, more than so. If you call, I will answer, and if you fall, I'll pick you up. And if you call this disaster, sail on, silver girl, sail on by. Your time has come to shine. All your dreams are on their way. See how they shine. Oh, it's only fair to do what's best for you and you alone. It's only fair to do what's right to me when you're not home. And I think it's time to make this something more than only fair. So if you call, I will answer, and if you fall, I'll pick you up. And if you call this disaster, I'll point you home. But I'm warning you, don't ever do those crazy, messed up things that you do. If you ever do, I promise you I'll be the first to crucify you. Now it's time to prove that you've come back here to rebuild, 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 rebuild,
What?
Well done. Well done. I held my breath there.
Me too.
This is an oral history at the National Music Center, so let's get oral for a second. All right. Let's go back to you know where we're going. Speaker's Corner.
Oh yeah.
Which was in London, in Britain, was the place where people would stand up in frock coats and speak their mind, and were not thrown off of that Speaker's Corner. Much music, and Moses Neimer decided that there should be one at the corner of
Queen and John.
Queen and John. Well, Queen and John. Yes, Queen and John. And it cost you what did you cost?
A loony.
A loony. To speak for how long?
I think 60 seconds.
Okay. So you went in. No, you did the talking.
Well, we, this was originally just on City TV in Toronto, but they would every week show a kind of compilation program of the best or most interesting of the week's rants. And sometimes it was just people saying, I lost my cat, and it looks like this. And somebody else would be like, I think that Mulrooney is stupid. And somebody else is like, I don't like the GST. And somebody else is like, the streetcars are worse than buses. And then, I'm down here on Queen Street to tell you everybody on Queen Street's a poser. And we went down. We thought, we have a gig next week at the Rivoli. Let's go in there and we'll promote our gig by doing our song. So we cut Be My Yoko Ono down to exactly 59 seconds. So they could go, hi, we're Barenaked Ladies. We're too cheap to make a music video. Here's our song. And we sang, crammed into this little booth and sang Be My Yoko Ono. And kind of that was that. We thought, hopefully people will see it and then come to our gig.
And
then we get a call from one of the programmers at Much Music who said, this is amazing. This is what we were always hoping for, but it never happened. And they took this 1 minute, $1 video and put it into rotation on Much Music.
And then they made the mistake of inviting you in the room.
It became a thing where we could just go, hey, can we come in today? And they'd be like, sure. What do you want to do? I don't know. Want to just goof around? Okay, cool. It was great. Like in that era for Canadian musicians, we had a lot of access to coast media exposure, whether it was on the multiple music programs that were on CBC Radio 1 and the AM stations. There were lots of different places to go on, variety shows, music-based shows. And then on television, everything from the non-stop music on Much Music, where we'd go in and play, or we'd just banter with a VJ, or we'd go on a trip somewhere and they'd send a camera and we'd just do dumb stuff and they'd film it, to all kinds of stuff that was on the CBC. Everything from things like Rita McNeil's show to the much maligned Ralph Ben Murky show. For Canadian musicians, that was awesome because we got to go and actually perform on national television on a show that was on once a week.
And how many of you have cassettes at home? Thank you. Really?
Why? What do you listen to them on?
Why? In your truck? And the thing is, your yellow cassette, what were the total sales on the yellow cassette?
Around 100,000.
That's ridiculous. 100,000 yellow cassettes.
And it was a 5-song cassette that there you go, there's one. Right there. The reason it's 5 songs is because we had a tape previous to that we had recorded at home, and we took it to a duplication place, and they duplicated it at the wrong speed, so everything was slightly fast. So we sounded even younger than we were. And we were going down to South by Southwest, and thought we needed a better demo. So we went into the studio for one night, because that's all we could afford, from 11 p.m. till 7 a.m., and all we could afford was one reel of tape. So the last song on that, Fight the Power, the Public Enemy song, is only there because we had about a minute left of tape. And we had been doing this in our show. So we said, well, we'll just do it until we run out of tape. And that's what the at the end of it is us running out of tape. And it's just the same thing on both sides. And we took this down to South by Southwest as a demo. And there's a Canadian industry showcase. And we had applied to it, and they said no, which was kind of the standard response we got from all Canadian record companies and publishers was no, this is crap, and it's a novelty, and it'll be over tomorrow, and I don't even understand why people go see this. And we're, at this point drawing sold-out crowds at most venues in not just in Toronto but across Canada, and the labels were embarrassed by it. So they said we couldn't be on the showcase. So we just went down anyways, and we said, okay, we'll see you there. And we did what we always did, was like, well, if we can't get into something, we'll just go and play outside. Because we were acoustic and portable, and we just busk out front. And quite often that would draw the bigger crowd anyways. And luckily for us, Alberta's own Junior Gone Wild couldn't get across the border. So we took their place because we're right out front, and they ran outside. The organizers ran outside to panic and said, "Can you guys play? Because we need another band. Actually, can you play 2 sets?" So it was a triumph for us. But then we came home with more of these tapes and started selling them at shows, and then started getting record stores asking for copies, and it just went from there.
Let me tell you how stupid the record business in Canada became. Please, if I could. Jeff Healey. God, I love Jeff Healey. He got 27 rejection letters for his first album. One of them said, and he framed it, if you only had a hook, we could sign you.
To which Jeff said,
okay. He plays like Jimi Hendrix with the guitar in his lap, and he's blind, and he can't get signed by record companies.
And he had 2 curly-haired guys in his band.
There you go.
That's a hook there.
Okay.
Actually, you'll see if you've seen the exhibit. You flip through there, some rejection letters from, and we didn't redact the names. I don't know if the people are still in the music business or not. But it's lots of this is not for us at this time.
I'm saying this to you in the front row. I'm saying this to you. You have no idea what you're up against. And the reason why it's great that he's here, because this man represents indie music in Canada. Whether it's with Barenaked Ladies or whether it's his own solo career, this is the way to do it. This is the man right here. Follow this. Is it okay if you're a leader?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm doing it myself now because I don't trust anybody. I'm paranoid and control freak. But I really don't want to have fans, so I figure this is the best way to do it. At this age, it's I don't know how to do this. I mean, my best advice to everybody here would be, if you really want to make it, start in the 90s. Because that's kind of that's my perspective. That's how I know how to do it. Now it's very different. But the big similarity is, in those days, in 1990 and 91, it was all about word of mouth. I mean, we did have radio and television support and so on. We also had retail support. They would, largely thanks to our tape, but also artists like the Cowboy Junkies and Lorena McKennett and the other band, shall we remain nameless for now, but there were other bands that had independent records that were popular, that eventually there were kind of indie sections in the stores. But really, the thing that brought people to our shows were the people who came to our show the week before. And that's, social media can only help with that. Yes, there is a lot more out there, and there's a lot more ability to make music on your own. We made our early stuff in our parents' basements, which was not common for commercial recordings. Now it is. Now you can make records anywhere you want. I read somewhere that more records are made in Airbnbs than in professional recording studios now.
Where's the Airbnb people? Oh, thank you. Okay. Just remind people about Page Productions.
Well, this was our label, Page Productions, which later became Page Music, was because we had, as we'd started to become more and more popular, we were getting requests for tapes from Sam the Record Man and A&A's and A&B Sound and whatever else. We didn't have the money to pay for the tapes because the volume was going up. So my dad said, well, I'll pay for it, and I'll take care of the orders and ship it out and whatever else for you in exchange for a piece of that.
And what did your mom do?
Prayed. Prayed that this went okay and didn't destroy her family.
And your brother Matt?
My brother Matthew actually ran the fan club. He would make with whatever the built-in Apple word processing application was called.
It was Pong.
Yeah. He would make the little Barenaked Ladies newsletter and take care of all of that stuff. And then eventually the company became bigger and bigger because other bands would start coming to my dad and say, can you do that for us too? And eventually they got bought out by EMI Music, and that was the end of that. But it was a few years where I actually ended up having this huge warehouse and offices, and it was kind of crazy because it was for a long time just ran out of my parents' basement.
Stephen Page at the National Music Center. I'm Terry David Mulligan. Now, here's the deal. By the way, this interview will be the podcast for Mulligan Stew, the podcast, next week, okay?
See?
We're going to do the whole thing.
He's doing it new media style.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The next tune, I don't know what it is because you haven't told me.
Yeah, I didn't.
You hadn't have told yourself. Is it pre-2009 or post-2009?
I figured I should do something post-2009.
Okay, because 2009 was when he went solo, and when we all wondered what was going to happen to our world.
The world just kept on moving?
Yes.
Without
Strangely.
me.
So where were you taking us?
When I split from BNL in 2009, I'd written a lot of songs on my own inside of the group as well, so I was not totally learning something new, and I was getting ready to make a new record. And I had a bunch of songs that I had written that were intended to be for the next BNL record until I wasn't included in that anymore. So I had like some songs I was pretty proud of, and then I had like lots of bits and pieces, and trying to make sense of what I was writing and what I was trying to say, and was I even trying to say anything? And we were talking about Craig Northey from The Odds. I called him and said, would you be interested in helping me sort through some of this stuff? And he and I have been friends since, I think, about 1992 or 93. And The Odds toured with Barenaked Ladies for years and years, so we had a lot of shared history, and he's about the nicest guy in, not just in the music business, but in the world. And he's totally been there for me in bad times and being there with me in the greatest times. So he flew to where I live in upstate New York, and I showed him a bunch of ideas that I had, and I thought, I don't know what this song is about, and it probably wasn't about anything. Probably my usual kind of self-deprecating, I'm terrible kind of song, which is why I tended to write a lot of those. Occasionally I still do, because it's kind of true. But he would come up with lines that seemed kind of oblique. We had some metaphors of maybe old-time sailing ships and stuff in there we were throwing about. And then all of a sudden I kind of realized what the song was. Like, I think he didn't really know until that moment either. I remember looking at him, we both kind of went, oh, this is what it's about. So it kind of became I think of it as a combination between Salisbury Hill and 6 Months in a Leaky Boat. Two songs about being in a band and maybe not being in a band anymore. About how being in a band and being in a boat are very similar sometimes.
Nice.
Sometimes you get on each other's nerves.
Nice. Stephen Page at the National Music Center.
As captain of this band of merry sailors, I'm a black mark, I'm a failure, but before you watch me drown, I'm relinquishing command for something I don't understand. This man's about to turn his whole life upside down. I set a course for a new shore. It looked the same as the one before, and I forgot what I had been sailing for, and why I thought this time would be different. Most of this by feeling let go of the wheel. The constellations do the navigation on their own. Whilst yearning for adventure, dreading censure and absentia, I would rather be at sea than be alone. I set a course for a new shore. It looked the same as the one before, and I forgot what I'd been sailing for, and why I thought this time would be different. The charts we drew, they said there wasn't anything but fairy tales. I showed them it was you, I told them you were everything a fairy tale could be. The boat sails by, the shore remains, and so do I. I swear this time will be different. I settled here on a new shore. My lips were blue and my legs were sore, and I forget if I was pushed or I jumped overboard. And after all this time, what's the difference?
Well done. The singing metaphor. Way to go, man.
Thank you. It's not a song if I'm not nearly dying by the end of it.
We're going to get to the juicy part now. And it's a speed round, okay?
I was acquitted.
Well, that takes care of the first minute. Okay. Of the Barenaked Ladies studio albums, of the 113 songs that were written, how many do you think you did? Or were co-credited with?
A lot.
Would 97 work?
That sounds about right.
Okay, fine. 97 of 113 songs.
So it's basically everything except for your favorite 16 songs.
Tell me about the routine with you and Ed. Was it who was doing lyrics? Who was doing music? Was it?
No, it was both. It was always both.
Right.
Like, I mean, right back to seriously, the first song I think we ever wrote together was "If I Had $1 Million," and that was written the way it sounds, where he sang "If I Had $1 Million," and I sang "If I Had $1 Million." Like all the back and forth was just what we said.
Call and response.
Call and response. Call and response was not a co-writer on it, but we did thank him on the record.
Very nice. Do you remember the Gordon tour?
I sure do.
That was
72 dates around Canada.
Unbelievable.
And we were so altruistic. We're like, this is for everybody. Every ticket is $20. And we thought, we are such heroes. Every ticket, $20. This is like, no matter where you are, nobody cared. We could have been so rich. We could have been like, $65 for the good seats. And no, it didn't matter, but we did get to go everywhere.
How painful was the split?
Terrible. Every split's terrible. I mean, even if the closest I can compare it to is a marriage. I had gone through one of those the year before. So a couple divorces in a couple of years is pretty hard on a guy.
Nice.
Even if it's his fault. But like, even if a divorce is like you set out to make it amicable and you know it's the right thing to do, it still is so fraught with so many other feelings, and it can't help but be messy and weird.
For those of you watching in the year 2025, the JUNOs were held in Vancouver in 2017? 18. And thank you. And you came together as a group to be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
How was it?
Fun. It was great. Yeah, it was great.
What were you had to agree on the songs, you had to hugs and kisses and come together because you had so much shared history together.
Yeah, I mean, when it came to choosing the songs, although it was never said to me, my sense was that they were probably thinking, oh, he's going to want to sing all the ones that he sang, and that's going to be weird because we've been going for 10 years without him, and all of a sudden we got to go back in time to this. And I thought, well, but my instinct was right away was, like, seriously, the two songs that I don't do live that I sang in the band are One Week and If I Had $1 Million, because they're duets, and I think it would feel weird to me, and I feel like it would feel a little cheap for the audience to see me like either trying to cover the whole song or do it with some other stranger. I haven't even done Brian Wilson yet.
Please wait. Please, could you hold it?
No, she's just sick of it. So I just went right ahead and said, like, I think we should if we can do two songs, like, and I knew, okay, it's the same capo position on so like, I'm already thinking, I'm back there. I'm 10 years in the past already. I'm like, this is going to be great. And they were totally cool with it. So I think that was easy. There was no stress over that part. And then meeting up again, I just did the, hey! And I could see a little bit of the kind of the, please don't hug me, for a second. And then it was totally great. We had lots of laughs, lots of memories, and playing music was super easy. Like, just so I started to panic a little bit before our rehearsal, thinking, oh, I don't remember what the walk-up thing is in 1 week. I can't remember. I'm looking it up online. And I'm going like, that's not right. I'm sure that's not right. And then as soon as I had my guitar on, I stood there with the guys. Like I didn't have to think about it. Fingers just went to exactly where they're supposed to go. For once. I'm sure that's what the other guys are thinking. God, he's playing it right for once.
We all of us would want to know when the reunion tour will happen, but I won't ask that question.
I don't know the answer anyway. So.
Thank you. It's not up to you.
Exactly right.
Exactly. All right, let's talk new stuff. You're writing your second musical?
Yeah, my first musical I wrote with the Canadian playwright Daniel McIver, Governor General Award-winning Daniel McIver, who's one of Canada's great playwrights and film directors and actors. And that has been commissioned by the Stratford Festival, so we'll hopefully be on there either next season or the season after. We've workshopped that a couple times. And now I'm writing another one. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to announce it or not, but I'm writing another one based on a movie with a great team of people in the United States, and so far it's going well. Although I owe them some music very soon.
You can't tease us.
I don't even know if it's public. I can't remember.
I see.
And I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get fired.
We're live on Facebook. It's okay. All right, man.
It's called Phantom 2.
You're going to the UK in August, and then you're going to the States.
Yeah, biggest U.S. tour in a long time. I hope my body can keep up. Now, but the tour, I tour mostly with this trio, which is myself and Craig Northey and Kevin Fox on the cello, and it's just such a wonderful way to live your life. To make music with guys you really love being around, who we all take care of each other. We all love to make fun of each other, but also give each other the space we need. And then we all go home and live our home lives and do our other jobs. And there's no baggage because we didn't grow up together. We weren't children together. We're just being adults together. It's very easy.
When you were talking to your six newest friends, were you talking about band dynamics?
A little bit.
Because you can't learn that in a class.
Well, and you know what? Being in a band is a very different thing from being a solo artist. Not in the sense that, one is with other people and one is that you're alone. When you're a band person, you've chosen to identify as part of a band. And for me, from the age of 18 until the age of 38, I was, in my mind, Barenaked Ladies. No more than anybody else in the band was. Just the same way that Tyler was and is Barenaked Ladies. It was just who I was. And when I stepped away from that, and I couldn't be just guy from Barenaked Ladies, I had to figure out who I was. And it took me time, but not that much time, really, honestly, to realize that even as a solo artist, you're never really truly working alone. There are times when you're writing songs alone, or you're traveling by yourself, which can be lonely or can be totally enjoyable. But everything is a collaboration, whether it's with your office people, your management, sidemen, promoters, anybody else that you work with. You're collaborating, and that's, as a solo artist, the difference is just that you can collaborate with a lot of different people and choose who and when you do those collaborations. So once I learned that, I really, really began to enjoy what I do.
I went back and listened to an interview that you and I did a couple of years ago, and you said making page one was a great opportunity for me to learn that I could do a lot of other stuff that I hadn't done before or allowed myself to do, about getting the sounds in your head out into the world and defining the value of art and music and not feeling guilty. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, and I still grapple with all those things. The idea of being an artist for a job is something that I still always feel guilty about, because it doesn't feel like a real job. Even though I know how hard I work, I feel like I still have to justify to myself that I was productive today, even though maybe I was thinking, maybe I was making stuff up in my head, maybe I was dreaming, maybe I was fretting. All those things are part of making art. But doing the solo stuff, when you're in a band, sometimes you need to let the other people in your band shine. You need to let the bass player come up with his bass part, and you can't be the guy going, no, play it like this, play this. Where when you're a solo artist, you can go, I'm going to play the bass part, and I'm going to play it 700 times until I get it right, and there's going to be nobody else there except for the producer to roll their eyes at me. But I don't get the spark of somebody else's creativity on that necessarily.
Yep.
But what I do get is the spark of being and the great energy of being able to translate the music I hear in my head.
I promise we're almost there. You also talked about, you did a speech at Laurentian University around the time of Jane. And you said, if you look between the lines, it's all in there, my depression, which I had from the 20s. You're okay now. You've come through that. But what?
Not really.
But
I've learned to manage it
you've
better.
learned to manage it.
Yeah. I still struggle with anxiety and depression a lot, and it slows me down sometimes. But I've learned to be okay with some of that, and also learn to find the signs earlier than I used to. I used to always be surprised too late.
Is there a song that you wrote specifically about that?
I still write songs about it, but I can finish off with the song that it's all about if you like.
Oh, nice segue.
Yeah, you were you were winding that up right into the zone there.
Tell me about Brian Wilson. It was on the yellow cassette, so it was there at the beginning.
Yep. And I don't think I even fully understood what it was about. I think I was just writing because I had just learned the story of Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. And I was never a Beach Boys fan as a kid. I always thought it was super lightweight compared to the stuff that I liked. If the Beatles were like the hip, then like the Beach Boys were like the Barenaked Ladies. And then you realize, no, there's some good stuff going on in there I didn't know about. I kind of just thought it was kind of like bubbly and it didn't have any depth, and then I didn't know about the breadth of their music and the ambition and the use of the studio as an instrument, and then Brian's own metal troubles. And at that point in the late 80s, people only, like, Brian Wilson was a punchline for people if they knew about him. Like, he's the guy who spent all his time in bed, and he had a sandbox in his
feet in the sand.
Yeah, exactly, in his bedroom, and piano was in the sandbox, and it was kind of a joke. That's how people saw it. And I saw it and thought, it's not a joke. Like, I totally understand that. I haven't gone to that extreme, but I understand what it is to not you want to or not be able to get yourself out of bed. But I also understood the power that music had to transport me to other places mentally.
Transport us to other places.
Exactly. So if it works for me, then it works for other people. But you know what? 19 in my parents' basement writing this, or 20 or wherever I wasn't thinking about other people ever hearing it. Just wrote it because and this is one of those ones that just came out in one fell swoop. And you pray for those songs. They never come for me. They come once every few years, and they're like, thank you, because they're almost always my favorite ones.
If you would.
One day when we were making our album Maroon in Los Angeles with producer Don Was, one day we got into the studio in the morning, and Don said, come with me, guys, I got a surprise. He took us into one of the other studios, and we sat down, and we're like, what's going on, Don? And he brings in Brian Wilson, and Don had made a documentary about him before that, so they were friends and so on. So he brought Brian and his wife Melinda into the studio, and we talked to them for a minute, and then Brian said, do you guys mind if I play you something? And we said, sure. And he put the CD in the player and started, and it went, if you want to find me, I'll be out in the sandbox, wondering where the hell all the love is gone. And it's him and his band singing our song about him. It was Brian Wilson singing Brian Wilson, and he's standing next to the CD player looking at us. It was like, not just surreal, like so amazingly emotional. And he's like, he did change. He said, playing my piano. And he said, I don't play guitar. And I wanted to say, no, it's because I'm singing about me, dude. But I didn't want to say that to him. And then we decided, like we said, do you want to hear one of our songs? After we were kind of recovered, we played him this song called Tonight is the Night I Fell Asleep at the Wheel, which was kind of, has this Calliope circus thing. It's lyrics about somebody dying in a car accident, which I thought he'd like because of, Jan and Dean and stuff. But his response was, that's interesting. Which is totally what my mom says when she doesn't like stuff. And he said, okay, I'm hungry. Let's go get some sushi. Don't eat too much, guys. And then he left. So that was a cool thing. That's the best part about this song. Oh, and then we went and he played in Toronto, and they started the show with that. And all my friends were there, and then, I don't know, how do you respond? Like, you want to go. But I think I just hid under my seat.
Drove downtown in the rain, 9:30 on a Tuesday night, just to check out the late night record shop. Call it impulsive, call it compulsive, call it insane. When I'm surrounded, I just can't stop. It's a matter of instinct, it's a matter of conditioning, a matter of fact. You can call me Pavlov's dog. Bring a bell and I'll salivate. How'd you like that? Dr. Landy, tell me you're not just a paragon. 'Cause right now I'm lying in bed just like Brian Wilson did. But I'm lying in bed just like Brian Wilson did. Just staring at the ceiling times, and I'm thinking about, what to think about. Just listening and re-listening to smiley smile, and I'm wondering if this is some kind of creative drought, because I'm lying in bed just like Brian Wilson did. Oh, and I'm lying in bed just like Brian Wilson did. Whoa. If you want to find me, I'll be out in the sandbox, just wondering where the hell all the love is gone. I'm playing my guitar, building castles in the sun, whoa, 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 and singing fun, fun, fun. I'm lying in bed just like Brian Wilson did. Oh, and I'm lying in bed just like Brian Wilson did. Oh. I had a dream that I was 300 pounds, and though I was very heavy, I floated till I couldn't see the ground. I floated till I could not see the ground. Somebody help me, I couldn't see the ground. Somebody help me, couldn't see the ground. Somebody help me, because I'm lying in bed just like Brian Wilson did. Oh, and I'm lying in bed just like Brian Wilson did. Oh, yeah! Drove downtown in the rain, 9:30 on a Tuesday night, just to check out the late night record shop. Call it impulsive, call it compulsive, call it insane. Oh, but when I'm surrounded, I just can't stop.
Stephen Page. Stephen Page. Master in Residence Stephen Page. At the National Music Center, Calgary, Alberta.
Thanks to all the artists here. What a thrill working with all of you. Thank you.
Live from Studio Bell, home of the National Music Center in Calgary, Alberta, that was my conversation with Canadian icon Stephen Page. Watch out for his forthcoming album, Heal Thyself, Part 2, Discipline. And a huge thanks to the National Music Center for hosting this event and allowing us to share it with you. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe to the Mulligan Stew podcast. We post new episodes each and every week. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, and Spotify. I'm Terry David Mulligan. Thank you for listening.